as it is. We had a panel in here last time and they dimmed one of the lights. And everyone in there was okay with that, but is that okay with everyone here? Do we need to dim more? Keep it as it is, or have more light?
There wasn't last session that was really.
Well, that's more light.
Oh,
That's the half.
this is better.
This is
that
better.
other one's
Okay.
nasty.
Great. All right. And should we close the door? Maybe cut down a little bit on some white noise. Am I grabbing it? Thank you. All right. So we'll start off. I'm Dorothy, and we'll start, if it's okay, with Ariel. Move down this way. Just a little introduction about yourself, who you are. Get a little something at you.
Hello, my name is Ariel Wildman, and I am currently a student at CAQ Academy. I have been here for 2 years. I'm 28 years old, going on 29, and I have a 4-hour internship at Intermountain Chiropractic Billing in Orem.
I'm Sue Chamberlain. I just retired from Scenic View Academy. I was here for 14 and a half years. I taught healthy sexuality and art and anything else they wanted me to. Driver's ed, reading, how to go shopping. I even taught the cooking class for a while. I am now retired and not liking it.
I was gonna ask, do we have to grab a microphone or can everyone hear?
I can hear.
These are, on my understanding is these are stationary and I don't have
Okay.
one that floats.
I just wasn't sure if everyone can hear. I'm Brandy. I used to be a student here, so I don't like Jessica and Sue and a few other people, but most of the people here are new. I left like 4 years ago. And I was here for about 3 years, so it was like seven years ago. This was actually the reason I moved up to Utah, because I'm not from Utah. I don't have any family out here, so I just hopped on a plane one day and came out here. Right now I work at Kids on the Move. I've worked with people with special needs since 2007, I think. So it's all I've ever done. I'm used to working with kids. I've worked at Spectrum and I've worked at Clear Horizons and pretty much all the places around here. I have a dog and a cat, and I will talk about them for like 3 hours. I have so many stories if you guys really want to hear them, but I have to be careful because I'll totally talk about them the whole time. And I live in Provo by the hospital I have one roommate. I'm looking for another one, but usually it's 2 roommates and myself. And I'm at UVU, and I'm in school to be a social worker, and I'm in the autism studies minor.
That's a minor?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yep. They made it a minor like 2 years ago.
That's cool.
I'm Nikki Lauer. I'm a BYU student in the illustration department, creative writing. I got my official diagnosis last September, I think. And around the same time as when I found out about Scenic View Academy. I have not yet managed to worm my way in here, but I do executive function coaching every week, which is how I found out about all this. And I'm so bad at these introductions. Like, how does one even do these? I have a dog. She's adorable. We could bond over that. I don't know your turn.
I'm Nancy Roundtree. I am a elementary school librarian at Spectrum Academy. We're a school for children with autism and Asperger's. I have a son with autism, and I also have a dog. He's not adorable. And and I think all of you know more about me than you probably ever want to know.
I have 4 dogs.
And so,
Would you like
we're
it to
gonna
be
open it
fun?
up for
Tarantula, you have a
questions.
scorpion now.
Jealous.
And if nobody pops their hand up, then I have a question for you. So, but it's like you might have one.
Yeah, I just want to know how you found out that you're on the spectrum, and It's my daughter, who's 25, and was exhausted after a full day of work and really wanted to come and hear this, but she just needed to be home for a while. She's not diagnosed, but I'm on, like, she and I both feel 99% that she is on the spectrum. But I've heard that it's like $600 or whatever to go and get a diagnosis.
Oh, hello. What is your name, ma'am?
My name's Judy Christensen.
Hello, Mrs. Christensen. Mrs. Christensen. Yes. Concerning the price, the last time I checked, it was at least $430. So, but I'm thinking getting a diagnosis is worth the cost.
Where did you, I mean, do you mind telling me, like, where you saw it for $430? Because that's better than what I've heard.
I'm sorry?
Where was that? Or does it depend on your
I
insurance?
think it was some sort of booklet I saw about.
I'll have to keep looking.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know the price, but I was diagnosed when I was 16 because I was really depressed and kind of hated life. And I lived in Washington where it's rain and gray and gloom for 10 months out of the year. So depression up there is actually, it's pretty common. But I lived in San Diego all my life. Before that, most of my life. We were in my dad was in the military, so we moved around a lot. But in San Diego, I had a lot of friends, and then I moved up to Washington when I was 14, and I was like, I don't know how to talk to people. Like, I don't know how people have friends. I couldn't figure out how it was that people, like new kids to the class, would come in, and a week later they would have friends, because I felt like I tried for like 6 months and nobody wanted to talk to me still. So I got really depressed, and then some things happened, and a therapist told me she thought that could be the right diagnosis, because I really like books. Like, I'm super OCD about my books. Like, I think I have over 800 at home. Most of them are in boxes. And that, for a while, that was, like, those were my friends, were my books. And so she had talked about that, and the fact that I preferred to be around animals over people, which I've gotten better about, but I still prefer hanging out with my pets than other people. And so she thought that was the right diagnosis. So I initially said no, because, you know, I heard about like Rain Man or the stereotype. I'm like, I'm not good at math. I'm not good at science. I can't be on the spectrum because I'm not good at those things. But I realized that was the stereotype, and so I got tested, and the doctor looked at home videos of me when I was like 2 or 3. He's like, yeah, that's the right diagnosis. So that's how I found out, and then that was in Washington, so I don't know about prices and stuff, but I denied it for a while. But then the more I learned about it, and I think working with people with special needs kind of helped me realize, oh yeah, we kind of, like, I can see some similarities between us. So I think that was one thing for me that kind of helped me accept my differences, I guess.
They didn't diagnose it when I was a kid. I'm 70 years old. My boss at Scenic View said, "You're on the spectrum." I said, "No, I'm not." And he kept it. He didn't really keep it up, but he just kept telling me things. And I finally ended up taking a test. And as they talk about how you grow, how you become as you get older, everything adds up. So that's how I found out.
It's very enlightening. I mean, how did you feel when you found out? Did you feel
I felt it kind of went, and I had my best friend in high school went, "That explains so many things." And I kind of went, bong. And there's so many fabulous gifts that come with this. The gift of study, all the things that we have. I was so pleased, because I all of a sudden wasn't the stupid, ugly, fat freak anymore. I had some really good stuff going on in there, and I used it. I'm going back to college at 70. I'm going to become a therapist I work with sex abuse survivors. I don't stop. It just drives me, and I'm so thankful for it.
That's awesome.
It's a great gift. You don't believe it, but it is.
Yeah, I was diagnosed when I just turned about like a couple of months after I turned 12 years old, and around that time my father was stationed in Italy, and I had a stepfamily. My stepmother noticed that. Come to think of it, my father. He said there was something strange about me when I was like 1 or 2 years old, when I kind of stopped talking. I forgot what other things that he didn't know about me. But my first initial diagnosis when he brought me to testing was E. coli, and I spent much of all of my elementary school life in a special needs classroom. I died of E. coli, but the problem was that my reading and writing were like college level, but my math, there was a little bit of trouble with math since it's a theoretical subject. I was great at everything else, but.
So, as far as price and like where to get tested, I got tested here in Provo at a place called Timpanogos Testing. It's run by a Dr. Michael South. He's a BYU professor, and he is one of the one places that I have been able to confirm will take almost any kind of insurance. And with that, I think my copay was like $150.
Yes.
And so, I just went and spent a Friday or Saturday with him, and it was great. He also, I believe he and one of his colleagues are running a study or something specifically on adolescent and adult women on the spectrum, and so he adjusts the testing so that it's not just going by the DSM where he's like, you're not a 5-year-old white boy, so clearly you can't have autism. He adjusts it, and it's a very comfortable environment, lots of good stuff. As for how I got diagnosed, my trail to diagnosis was a bit odd. I had no clue even what autism was. Growing up, my mom she has a early childhood development degree, but with no disability anything, and so she just assumed that I was maybe hitting milestones maybe a little bit later. She's like, you're fine, you're just shy, because she's painfully shy, and so she's like, you're just shy, we can do this. And then I made it through high school somehow, but then I went and served a mission, LDS mission. And while I was there, my brain blew up in my face, and I went into hardcore autistic burnout, and I just became a completely different person, and it was messed up. And there was one particular moment with my last companion. I was out there for 8.5 months, and my last companion, there was a time I was so depressed and stressed and messed up that there were chunks of time where we didn't leave the apartment. And there was one day when we were actually able to leave the apartment, and she was anxious because she didn't she just has basic anxiety, and I was trying to be helpful, and I was completely misreading her emotions. And it got to the point where we were pulled over to the side of the road, and she pulls out a napkin and proceeds to draw stick figure diagrams. It's if I'm in this position, this is what it means, this is how you react. And it was the whole freaking page that we kept in the car with us for at least a couple more weeks. and where like I could refer to it. It's like if she is in this position with this basic expression, this is like vaguely how she's feeling. And I distinctly remember saying, I feel like a person with Asperger's, because the only exposure I had to that was one of my high school friends. She once mentioned to me that one of her brothers had Asperger's and that he didn't get sarcasm. And so I'm like, okay, if you don't process the emotions of the people around you, that's what that is. And after I came home, my companion, the A led to B, led to C. She started poking around, and when she got home and I went to her homecoming, she like discreetly Googled some stuff and took a test from my perspective, and later that night she's like, I think you might want to look into this. And I did, and then I'm like, this is brilliant. Why did no one tell me this? And I just kind of like went hardcore, and it's, yeah. And it's been really, really helpful for me, because just having a context to put everything into, knowing, and sometimes it's frustrating, like looking back, like if I had known this, if I had known that X, Y, and Z don't work for me, I could have come at it from a different angle. I wouldn't have spent my entire junior year like in like a raging mess because of my freaking history textbook. How do you even read that? Like executive functioning and planning, and it's like this hot mess. If I had known that accommodations were a thing, that taking a break and like recharging was a thing, if I'd known this, then I would have been in such a better place mentally, and I would have had the words to explain it and to communicate with people.
Can I ask another question? I'm wondering for all of you, is it easier to be, like my daughter, it seemed like it was easier for her to be friends with guys than girls because girls were too emotional?
Ugh, girls are horrible. Guys have one emotion. No, I never had girlfriends in high school. And it was just really because girls have nuances to them, and nuances are hard to read. And guys are like, huh, that shirt's ugly. Oh, thank you. I mean, it's just, they're just so blunt, and they're so much easier to understand. I will take guy friends over girlfriends any day of the week. And I have some great, I have great girlfriends now that now I can kind of like figure this out. But my best friends are the ones that say, you're talking too much. That's not what we meant. Let somebody else have a turn. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, these are the best friends that I have know that I have Asperger's. And they're girls and they're okay with it. But for the most part, I have a very difficult time connecting with women.
Most of the girlfriends that I have are also, I've got ADHD, other autistic girls, like, they are either part of my tribe or they're very confusing.
Men are easier. Sorry, guys. Super simple.
For me, I feel like it depends more on the personality. Like, I don't, there are guys I've gotten along with and guys that just want to, like, flirt with me or go play sports, and I'm not really, I'll play sports, but I'm not super into them. But then there are also girls who, like, are afraid of spiders on the wall. Like, there's a spider over there, and they want to run to the other side, and I'm like, just like, just leave it there. Go pick it up or whatever. Not pick it up, but yeah, Sue and I have talked about her tarantula and how I've been wanting one for like, 15, 20 years. Not 20 years, because that would be a little bit too long.
No, they live 40 years, you're fine.
But it depends more on the personality. I have a lot of girlfriends, but I also have some friends that are guys. It's just like how much we have in common and what like if we can get along or not.
When I was growing up, we moved so much as a child. Well, my father was a miner, and that's hard to explain because I'm so old. But we moved. I went to 16 schools in 1 year one time. And I learned and I think this is one of the gifts that autistics have. I learned to adapt. I could go to the class and find the little ugly fat little girl or whoever, probably autistic, who needed a friend, and I always had a good friend. I always made a good friend, and I think it was because I had to adapt to survive. But personally, I get along better with men than I do women. I don't know, they're just easier.
Oh, well, I did. My first girlfriend was a girl named Kenzie Kensington. When I was a student, I think I was like in 2nd or 3rd grade. I think I met her in 2nd grade in my special needs class. Special needs class. She was great. School friend. I called her a school friend because I usually mostly hung out with her. All the time I knew her before she moved away was in the school. I never invited her. I never got invited to her class, nor does she. In fact, most of my school friends, whether boy or girl, I never got invited to their houses or to mine. Anyways, while she was pretty fun to be around with, we talked about a lot of stuff. She did have, one heck of a temper. I think she injured 1 or 2 of my classmates in the room. Her temper was scary. The one time I met her outside school was one time when we crossed paths at our local mall, and when I attended her birthday party. I think she moved out almost just before I entered 6th grade. Now, when I was stationed in Italy, about around the year of my Asperger diagnosis, 7th grade, I met a girl who shared a similar name as mine. We both were overweight, we even both wear the same sneakers, and we were both interested in Pokemon, Digimon, Sailor Moon. We had so many conversations about the epic crossover, like adventure style storytelling. But I'm thinking about the January of the following year, she had to move away too. A lot of my girlfriends move away.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ariel. So 2 things. Did we catch the year you were diagnosed? And then Nathaniel had a question. I don't know if I spaced out if you shared that.
I don't know what year I was diagnosed. Mine was kind of a very casual thing. I started in the teaching college and to get my teaching degree and just was failing miserably. It was online and I couldn't coordinate. I just couldn't catch it. I just couldn't catch it.
Online school is kind of horrifying.
Yeah, then there was nobody to talk to, but no questions, and I would ask questions, and then they would misunderstand the questions, and then I would try to clarify the questions, and it was emails, just hundreds of emails, not doing my homework, but clarifying the questions on how to get into the home. It was horrific, and it kind of prompted me to, I was taking my son to a psychologist at the time, and I just said, dude, can I just talk to you? And he was like, yeah, sure. And we sat down and talked, and he was like, let's schedule you. And so I came in and talked to him, and he said, I think you have Asperger's. You don't have to tell anyone. I was like, okay. So mine was a very casual, I would say, 8 years ago? So sorry, I guess for me it wasn't the huge revelation moment. I was like, yeah, now that makes sense why I can't get in. So
I think that's nice through the spectrum because there is that diversity in everyone's experiences. Thank you. What was your question that you?
Oh, it's actually mainly just for you.
okay.
Yeah, but so I was just curious. What years did you were you at Scenic View? Like what years?
I moved out 3 days after Christmas in 2011.
Okay.
And then I guess the term started January something.
Yeah.
Beginning of January 2012. And then I think
And you graduated right after?
Yeah, and then I graduated. I left in 2014, and I was still here, but I didn't really come along. I was actually next door at Heritage.
Oh, okay.
And then I graduated, I think, in 2015, but I
Okay, so
had work at that time, so I didn't actually
So
go.
basically, the end of 2011 to 2015.
Yeah, it was June of 2015.
Okay.
I believe. And I don't know if I'm allowed to call on
Okay,
people.
any other questions? Kaden?
Okay, Sue, how you become like if you like you at your high school or your college, people make fun of your SAT or what do you do with that?
I went to high school and I failed everything except for one class.
Oh.
And so I went to high school. My mother sent me to California to finish, and I did get my diploma, but I had math problems. I taught myself to read by comic books. I thought I was stupid. The lady in the counselors back in the 60s weren't the nicest folks in the world. She told me I was too dumb to do anything but sling hash. I didn't even understand what she told me. So I asked my dad, and he told me what it meant. So I did try waitressing. It lasted a week. With our social skills, there's no way you can do that kind of thing. You can't go take orders from people. So I couldn't do that. So I went to beauty college. It's the only thing I could do. But you have to work with people, and that was really hard too. So then I went to college and got straight A's and continued, became a special ed teacher. Does that answer your question at all? But all through high school, I failed everything. Everything. I was so dumb.
And then you ended up doing really well in college.
Yeah.
It's really funny when you go. I went to high school and I failed, and then I went an extra half year to get my diploma, got my diploma, and then went to beauty college, excelled. I did really good with the work, except for the math. Still can't do math. But then I went to college and got straight A's, and I thought, something don't seem right. But I was a little older. Maybe it was developed as I got older, and I adapted. I'm really good at adapting, and because I had to, because of the things I went through as a child. My mother was a very bizarre woman, and I had to. I think she was autistic, but we didn't know that. I had to adapt, and I adapt. When I can adapt, I excel. Did that answer your question, or didn't it? And then I came here and taught you sex ed.
So I have a follow-up question about that then, just for further clarification, if you don't mind. What specifically do you feel like, you said you got a little bit older, did you develop some sort of system that helped you to be able to adapt then and be able to excel in college and that's your career?
I think that adapting and compensating has been something I've done my whole life. I was raised alone, and my mother would take me to all these 16 schools in 1 year and drop me at this school and say, get home. And I didn't know how to get home. So I started watching when she'd bring me to the schools so I could get home. And I find myself, I think about that now, I adapted so many things so I could survive. And I think that's what helped me to get better and better and better and better at adapt and working through the Asperger's and through it. I didn't know I had it, but I did those kind of things to survive, because like body language, I learned how to read body language, and I'm an expert. And I think it was to adapt so I could survive. That's where most of it was. I didn't know I had Asperger's. Maybe if I had Asperger's or been diagnosed, maybe I wouldn't have done those things and have been as resilient as I was. I don't know. Did I have answer your question? I'm sorry.
So, opening it up to the rest of the panel, what are ways that you feel like you've been, what are some of your strengths, ways that you've demonstrated resiliency or an adaptability with your individual circumstances?
I have and I know a lot of, I've talked to a lot of people with autism, and we have these really amazing memories. And so, kind of like what Sue was saying, some of my short failings people didn't realize because my memory was so incredible that I could just get around what I was supposed to be.
You're a genius.
Yeah, yay! No, no, but like there were failings that I had, but I could get around it by a memory trick. And so that people wouldn't realize that I basically was faking things because my memory was so incredible that no one could imagine I could have remembered that or known that. I wish I could come up with an example, but I can't. So that's sort of, it's one thing that sort of, now I catch people on it. People come in the library and they'll be like, there was this book about cats. And they're like, oh, here you go. And they're like, oh, thank you. I was like, come on. That was kind of amazing, right? And they're like, oh, they're actually what? Well, you just do that so often that we don't think about it, you know? So then we all kind of laugh, and I'm like, yep, I'm just that good. But in reality, I can see that, you know, there was a kid in her class that picked out the book, and he really liked the book and shared it with a friend, and when I got it back, I said it right there. And so there's just all these little tricks that I think we can do that maybe make up for the fact that every place I'm facing is north. You know, I mean, there's just these little glitches. My parents are both school teachers, so I always thought that the school year, I still think that the year starts in September. Every time I pick up a calendar, I have to unstaple it and restaple it the right way, because the year starts in September. Because my parents are teachers. So I've, you know, been made fun of when I'm like, you know, oh, September is the first month. People are like, it's January. Like, oh, right, real people world. So, but there's just little, you know, I think that some of the skills that we have help make up for our deficits.
Some of the obsessions that we have as well can really lead us into some good places. If we're careful. If we're not, then we can it's real common for autistics to get into things that they shouldn't, like pornography and things like that. But if your obsessions can lead you into some good places if you're careful.
Right. Like, I obsessively read books. I remember them all, so when somebody comes in, I can go, oh, here, you'll like this, you'll want that, you'll want this, you'll want this, you'll want that. Because I remember them. So.
And she just said
Playing to your
that I taught
strengths.
myself to draw. When I was doing the sex class the first year, I hated it. I was so nervous about teaching these kids about sex. I taught myself to draw. As to get past the tension of doing what I was doing. No, it didn't bother me the second year, but it's the first year.
Did you guys want to, do you mind writing down your question? Okay. Nikki, did you
Okay.
want to comment?
So we're talking about strengths and resiliency, right? I think, let's see. Storytelling. I draw these connections in my head, and I can turn things into a story. I can put all the pieces together. Like, I remember while I was serving my mission, there was a game that my companion would play with some of the people we visited. It was a 5-finger game. You flip open your scriptures, you like smack your hand down, and you pick a finger, and you take that verse and you have to relate it somehow to some random topic. And I'd always get these really random verses, and they're like, there's no way you can make that. And I'm like, excuse me. Just give me like 5 seconds and I'll show you how this works. Because I could make things connect. I tell, like, yeah, like, I can, the way I think in sensations, and it's really weird because I draw pictures and I write words, and that's not how my brain works at all. And I'm like, literally, why did you do this to yourself? But like, I'll think, I'm like, oh, I want to draw this, and I'm like, I can feel my body, I'm like, this is what it will look like. I'm like, that doesn't look like anything. That's a position in space. And or I'll see it happening, and I'll just have to like figure out how to translate it. And because I'm like, I exist perpetually in translation, and so taking things, because I have to translate just to exist in this world, it's a logical next step to be able to translate, to communicate with other people who experience things differently. Like I can make connections with people through stories. I can explain it in such a way that people can understand me. And yeah, that's probably the biggest strength that I have, is that, like, if I can get going, then I can make people understand me.
Randy or Ariel?
You go first.
Okay. I think for me, after listening to both of them, I feel like I'm pretty similar, especially with Nancy. Like, everybody in my family calls me the elephant, because I'll like hear a story one time and then like I can remember all the details, and I remember things that, like, oh yeah, Mom, you put this, that, there, and that on that day, and like I could tell her the exact day, and we went here on this day, and this was the weather or whatever, and I don't know why, but it's just a lot of random things just click, I guess, and so I'm really good at remembering like insignificant details, but I can't for the life of me do algebra, so I can't figure out how that works, but I'm really good at picking up on little details. Like, I took art with Sue, and everybody tells me, like, you're such a perfectionist, stop it, but I can't. Like, if there's, I don't know, some little shading error in the picture, it drives me crazy, because it's not, like, I just pay attention to the little details. Or, like, where I work, a lot of the staff, when the kids are done, they'll just put things on the shelves and put them in bins. I'm like, guys, this is the sensory balls, and these are the spiky balls, and these are the, I don't know, the hard balls. Like, they're not the same thing. So I'll go through and organize all
How many of you do that?
20 different types of blocks that we have, and
I can't go to the DI. I organize the DI.
I worked there for a while. I was the
I
master.
can do that. I want to learn. I want to overcome the mental block of not doing mathematics, or doing or solving a chemical equation or any physics. I would love to do that.
I do it through
I was
stories.
inspired by a certain movie.
I know one of the things that helps me, and I was gonna talk about this in a second. I don't know if it would help you, but I'm realizing more and more I think I took a test on the 7 learning styles or whatever, and my highest was visual, spatial, and I think musical was like just barely below that, which I get so distracted by sounds. I when I have to take a test, I almost have to bring headphones, because if someone's like chewing gum behind me, I have to move.
I hate that.
How many of us got that too?
Yeah, it bugs me so much. Or like I'll be in math class, but I can hear the teacher on the other side of the wall talking, and so I can't pay attention to the teacher in front of me, because the teacher on the other side of the wall is distracting me. Or even like right now with people talking, I'm kind of forgetting what I was gonna say.
Sorry.
But yeah, how dare you sneeze?
I brought her down to sneeze. And sneeze hurricanes instead of regular sneeze.
Yeah.
Parents say bless you.
Sneezing is okay. That's the only acceptable noise.
Well,
But
except I kind of have a twitching disorder. It's called Tourette syndrome.
Yeah.
So that might be a problem for you.
it's fine. Like, motion doesn't distract me as much. It's when people are like talking behind me and I'm trying to pay attention to the math teacher and they talk like all hour long.
Overlapping sounds.
But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. So I'm a visual learner. So one thing that helps me is writing things out, and I like to write, and I'm very, like I said, I'm very detailed. So I write all the formula and like all the steps, and I'll just read it over like 3 times, and then after I do that 3 or 4 times or whatever, I can almost like picture it in my head, and I'll just, when I'm taking a test, I'll just like read it from my head.
I want that gift. I don't have that one.
So I don't know if that would help you, but I do that a lot to study. I just make flashcards and write and read them a few times and over a course of a few days, and then I just,
What if you took a
like,
class?
I can take
What
a
if you
picture
took
of
a
it.
class? Would that help?
Took what class?
Take a class in physics.
Yeah, you were talking about your blocks.
Yes, I would love to overcome blocks when it comes to mathematics and sciences. But my favorite science is biology, especially when it comes to human anatomy and biology and human anatomy and physiology, because I remember my paternal grandmother, grandmother Lydia, she was a registered nurse. She's retired now. But she was a registered nurse during much of my childhood and adolescence. My former stepmother was a nurse assistant, and my paternal step-grandmother, my paternal grandfather's second wife, she's a nurse anesthesiologist. So, and I watched a little bit of Grey's Anatomy and ER. And I even still Scrubs. So, some medical dramas and comedies. I just like learning about the effects of the human body, no matter how macabre or funny it might seem. So, I do like biology, especially learning about animals, cells, and how organs work. All different forms of life and genetics, especially
so
when it
cool.
comes to humans.
Thank you. All right, so you had a question.
Yeah, okay, so this is, I don't know if it's even, so I grew up with a kind of abusive mother. Not physically, but like really emotionally. She'd always like tell me that like everything I was doing was wrong and like kind of guilted me into like, oh, you have to come to football games with me because that's what I like. Like even to a point where I kind of developed really severe shame responses to my special interest.
I dropped all mine.
I can't, like if there's any other people around, I can't do anything that I like because I'm so afraid that they're going to do the same thing that my mom did. I was just wondering if any of you had any ideas for how to like cope with overcoming that kind of thing, or if any of you have dealt with similar.
Yes, I have. I told you about my former stepmother who was a nurse's assistant. Yes, her name. Well, I'm not going to use her name. Well, yes, she was verbally and emotionally abusive to me. The worst of it was when my dad was stationed in Italy, so my stepfamily, that included her and her eldest daughter, is staying in Italy with me. But before we even stepped foot on that country, we were staying at some military housing, and she started yelling and screaming about a lot of things I did wrong. Whether like I've used the wrong dish rag, or forgetting to return a book before getting out of the elementary school because I was moving. She yelled and screamed at me for a lot of stuff. If I did the slightest thing wrong, she would criticize me heavily, severely. It's almost the point where
Oh, sorry. So I was going to ask, just because we're running short on time, what are some ways that you feel like you've been able to cope with some of that?
Well, in a way, I'm still a little angry because I felt like she hasn't gotten comeuppance, even though she and my father have divorced, and the latter married a much more positive woman. Woman, and the cope is that I suppose time heals all wounds, but it's going to take me hours of therapy, to get over what she has done to me.
It'll take time.
Yeah.
But don't take what they say personal. Try to I know it's hard to say. My mother did that the whole time. She was the most toxic person I ever met. And I took some therapy, and she wasn't me. And I worked on it, but I'm a lot older than you. Try to get some help for it, because that's not the way. And it doesn't help your autism at all, because boy, they've really let you have every little thing you got. Yeah.
I was in a 20-year abusive marriage before I left, And it had really, I think, because of my Asperger's, I had thought that I was pretty stupid, and so that whenever he would isolate me or do things, that I kind of figured, that, yeah, I'm really dumb, I must deserve this, and I was very isolating to me. When I left him, I really realized it was never me. And that's what you have to realize. It's never about you. It's them projecting all of their own fears and insecurities and hatred of themselves onto you. And
Did she
find
have
a good
Asperger's?
therapist. So, really find a good therapist. It's really, because it's very damaging. And the day that you can kind of take that breath and say, oh, it was never about me, and you can let that go, that's where you're going to start healing.
And it sounds like, too, from some of your comments, maybe your experience with therapy helped you develop your identity a little bit, know who you were apart from that.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound accurate?
That has to be pushed aside and wiped away.
When I was in high school, my sophomore year, I was in I don't know if I feel comfortable calling it an emotionally abusive friendship, but it was definitely emotionally manipulative. And that year was an absolute mess for me. I am ridiculously empathetic. Like, people around me feel things, and I get secondhand emotions from them. And I have alexithymia, so I don't even know what to call this that is raining into me, but please stop, it's too much. And so I would get all of her emotions secondhand, and they were a mess, and so I was a mess, and everything was a mess. And for me, the thing that really got me out of it, one was getting distance. That year, I used the excuse that I had been getting sick a lot, but mostly it was I need to get out of here. And I started taking online classes so I could spend less time at the high school, and so I could just have more space. And just having more distance and realizing no, I'm not happy around this person. And the thing that made the most difference for me was I replaced that friendship with another one. One of my absolute best friendships, to this day, came from refocusing my energy. I'm bad friendship, good friendship, and I focused all of my energy into clinging to the good friendship, and looking for the people that will love and support you for the person you are and the person that you want to be, and that will instead of just constantly being a black hole for all of your energy, they're look for the people that give some back. And I can guarantee that they exist. They do exist. You can find them. And when you do, cling to them like a drowning man. Because, if you can find positive, healthy relationships, that people that are willing to connect with you, then it makes it easier to process. I still feel really uncomfortable thinking about the toxic friendship. I'm that was a mess. I don't like that. And it just made me feel really upset, uncomfortable. But when I find myself getting drawn into that was horrible, and I never want it's mess of nastiness, I refocus on the fact that I have good friends now, and they're people that this other friend that I made, she was the first person I told when I found out that I was autistic. I wrote her a big long letter. I'm so this is a thing that happened. And she's yeah, I'll buy that. And so finding those people that will lift you up and give something back to you.
And it's okay to never have to go back to the toxic relationship. I get that it's your mother, but it's okay to step away from that, because if it's not good for you.
So I was
And be careful. you might get a husband that's like your mama, so be
Yep.
careful.
You will look for someone because it's a dysfunction that feels familiar to
Yeah.
you. So be very careful of that.
That's when you need to get therapist before you
Yeah.
get there.
Yeah,
Find a
just
therapist.
simply look for someone that is the opposite of your mother.
And it's okay to separate from her because
Yeah.
It's all good.
they make you sick.
What about your father?
I'm actually going to visit him next week. So.
Ask to see if you can stay with him indefinitely.
All right, let's give these ladies a round of applause.